Hello everyone, today I'm going to be taking a look at the Empire Starter Set for Star Wars Legion from Atomic Mass Games. Begin your journey to the dark side here. This includes 22 Stormtroopers, 14 Scout Troopers, Darth Vader, plus all of the unit cards required, so unit, upgrade, command, battle, and your dice, tokens, and range and movement rulers. So everything you need to play. So let's see exactly how they come together. Inside the box we have cards, paper, and 1, 2, 3, and 4 sets of cards, because this is multi-language. So we have Spanish, we have German, we have English, and we have French. Pick the language you read, lose the 3 that you do not. Looking at the papery parts apart from the cards, which we'll come back to when we look at the miniatures, we have a read this first. Join the community, learn to paint, where are the rules? So you've got your assembly guide, a painting guide, and a QR code for the rules as well. On the reverse we have it in alternate languages. We also have playing a starter game, again multi-languages. So gather up the following army to play using this specific set of cards, along with the upgrades and the like. So it's essentially a play this first set of rules. We have a set of 3 token boards taped together, adhesive tabbed together at least. Not a fan of taping things like that, but it came off without ripping the surface, so that's good. Linen finished. Tokens, and then a large tracking device, presumably for rounds and disposition. We also have 2 more sheets of tokens, including the activation tokens that you draw from your bag. So everything you need to get started in playing Star Wars Legion in card form. Now let's take a look at the plastics. Okay then, so Vader, the leader of the Imperial faction in the box, comes on a single sprue. And as you can see, there aren't many components to it. So we have the torso in 2 pieces, 2 separate arms, which are complete, legs, head and a helmet, and cloak, which is also complete. So much so that it's actually been made to be one significantly tall piece. That requires quite a lot of tooling. It would have been easier for them to do it in separate parts, but then you would have a noticeable seam line unless you're planning to go to work to clean it up. So yeah, neatly done. Good level of detail on it. And everything is numbered and lettered. So when you come to the build, it should be relatively straightforward to put together. However, it is just 2 arms, 2 legs onto a body. So you shouldn't be able to mess it up. Anyway, there's no options in there. So let's get him built and see how he looks. Okay then, so Vader is built, not completely glued together, which we'll get to in a moment, but in case you are wondering, the Sith Lord stands a majestic 40mm to eye level. So he's a big fellow. The assembly instructions online are very straightforward. There's nothing major with it. I've left the head and cloak off, a little bit of blue tack just to keep it together. Simply so when it comes to paint it, I can get the Sith armor without having to worry about hitting his face or the cloak. It's not a major issue if you want to glue it together. Like I say, you've got relatively good access there, but it's just some of the points vanishing behind it. Likewise to the rear, to make sure, because the cloak billows quite nicely, as you can see. So to make sure you've actually got access to all of that, I would just leave the cloak off. The seam lines on either side are practically invisible if you use a good polystyrene cement and make sure that you press it together as it fits. You could run a bit of wire wool across it just to buff out any remnant of a seam there if you so desired, but otherwise he can be assembled in one go if you want, and then just paint him, or like I say, do them sub-assemblies to make sure you don't miss any. I'll pop his head there for a moment. His card for the game is relatively straightforward. If you've not seen the cards for Star Wars Legion yet, on the reverse is the model in question. So in this case, Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. Troopers, the keyword for any abilities or effects that affect troopers will affect him. 170 points if you're having to pay that cash to get him. He has the opportunity to buy upgrades, in this case 3 force abilities and 1 bit of equipment. If we flip it over, they are the in-game stats. So that's his commander token. So you'll have one of those. Again, Dark Lord of the Sith and the Trooper. He has Compel on Trooper, Deflect, Immune to Pierce, Master of the Force 1 and Relentless. He comes with his lightsaber. This shows that it has no range, i.e. it is melee / base to base only. Impact 3 and Pierce 3, and roll 6 red dice, which are very nice indeed. 8 wounds, and as far as morale, he doesn't need to worry about being suppressed. He moves a mighty 1, so the measuring stick 1 is that. There is a single upgrade force power in the pack, if you want to use it. Dark side only, force choke. Choose a non-commander, non-operative enemy trooper. Within 1 of this unit, the chosen unit suffers 1 wound, so he will just force choke the bejesus out of things, as is his want in life. But that is Vader. He does exactly what it says on the tin, and for 170 points. He's a bit pricey, but he is, after all, a Dark Lord. Okay, so the core of your Galactic Imperial Force is made up of Stormtroopers. Stormtroopers have 4 identical sprues, like this, and then 2 additional sprues. As you can see, everything is lettered and numbered. While they are multi-part, they are not interchangeable. So as we can see, this sprue contains 4 torsos, B, D, C, and down at the bottom, E. All of the components are lettered and numbered, so all of the E's go together, EO1 and EO2, EO3, EO4, EO5, and so on. It will allow you to make your 4 standard Stormtroopers with their blasters. Nice layout of the sprue. Only a couple of sprue gates that got in the way around the bottom of sort of armor, like this one here. But otherwise relatively crisp and don't require much cleanup once they are off the sprue. Alongside this piece of wonderful gubbins, we also have 2 of these sprues, which I like to think of as the support sprues. They contain 3 bodies, so an additional 6 troopers. You have, where are we? The sergeant with his black and orange shoulder pad of rank, shall we call it that. Alongside that, we also have these 2 F bodies, which can be made up to give you either the HH-12 rocket launcher for taking out big incoming beasties, or you can also rock the T21 repeating blaster here. And again, not a major issue. Slight sprue gate between the buttocks of this one and between the armor plate on your Sergeant here and here. They required me to cut away from the model and then go in with a knife and very gradually trim out the remaining bit of sprue. But overall, again, nicely laid out sprue and gets everything where it needs to be. So then looking at the assembled versions, we'll give you the measurement of our Sergeant. He is approximately 35mm to eye level, so 5mm shorter than Vader, as is only right and proper. You can see he has that shoulder pad. Now, the Stormtrooper assembly instructions online say to put the two halves of the body together, two legs together, and then insert legs up into torso. You will find that in every case, the armor around the codpiece will get in the way, and to get it on, you have to push down with considerable force until you hear a snapping sound, which I don't like. You're much better assembling the legs and then pushing the front part of the torso on and then the back piece in. There's enough keying on those that you won't have any issues with wobblingness or falling apart, especially if you're using a good glue, and you won't have any problem with overstressing the model. Alongside our Sergeant, we have our two specialists. So here we have the blaster, or in this case, repeating blaster. And we also have that mighty HH-12 rocket launcher. So if you're looking to put a hole in something like a Rebel, that's probably going to do the job. But as you would expect, Stormtroopers are fairly pristine and clean. We have the other four. So this is what your first sprue, your main sprue build. So you essentially have 16 of these, mostly firing. One guy pausing to wonder why he's not firing, or waiting an order. Lovely set of figures across the board. There are a couple of unit upgrades available for them. If we take a look at their card very briefly. So, Stormtroopers, again, for your list building, 42 points for a squad. They have two different upgrades available. You can see here's one with a sort of a heavy weapon, and then here's just a regular silhouette. And then we also have some ordnance and equipment available as well. You do not have to use them, but they are available to you. Your Stormtrooper comes with a bludgeon for melee and the E11 blaster rifle, 1 wound and 1 pip of morale if you so desire. On a surge, they get a standard hit or strike, and they use red dice for their defense. They also move 2, so they're relatively quick compared to Vader. This tells you there are 4 in a squad. So with that 4 as your standard, you have options then with your support. Remember, you can only take 1 of these. So you can either add the HH-12 or the T-21 per squad. Either or, it's not both. The other upgrade available is for standard troopers, which will allow you to either add a single Stormtrooper miniature for 8 or 5 Stormtroopers for 46. And if you do it, you also gain some additional rules and keywords to go with. Important because you've only got 1 of those as an upgrade, like the support trooper. You can either take a unit of 4 a unit of 5 or a unit of 6 if one of them has a support weapon. If you decide to add 5, that brings you up to your 9, and then 10 if you bring a support with you. You can't take 10-man unit with these cards as is. So those are your options for the Stormtroopers. Okay, so the Scout Troopers are also across 2 sprues. However, this time you only get 2 of each. So a limited number compared to your Stormtroopers. Once again, everybody is lettered and numbered. So to be brutally honest, you don't actually need the assembly instructions. You can just put these together by clipping out all the parts that say AO 1 to 7. Build it and then go back and do the next. So it's relatively straightforward to put them together. With that said, we also have, again, our sort of support sprue. Again, it's got 2 F-type bodies, which are your support weapons, and then your E, which can be an additional trooper / sergeant, somebody to keep their eyes on everybody. There is a figure that has a pair of binoculars, or in Star Wars case, a monocular, which may be more fitting for a sergeant. So here we have our Scout Troopers with the 2 support options. So your Sonic Charge and your DLT-19 Sniper Rifle. Both with foot-on tactical rock, as you may see. Because they are plastic, you could replace that with something else. It's not attached to anything in particular. You'll just need to find something else to rest his foot on. A dead Ewok, perhaps. Again, nice detail on all of the figures. Crisp and clean as you would expect. With this fella and his little hold-out blaster looking behind him to work out what the noise is. I did find attaching the arms, because these are cut at the elbows, was a little bit wobbly on my behalf. It didn't key as neatly as some of the other pieces, so there's a fair amount of flex and wobble, both horizontally and vertically. So you just need to watch out for that to make sure you don't glue them at a slightly odd angle. But because you're using polystyrene cement, you shouldn't have any major issues with it. Alongside those 3 gents, we also have a set of Scout Troopers in a variety of poses, including, like I say, one with a monocular. Standing on a tree stump, so probably an Endor about to be killed up by murder teddies. Nice set of figures, and again, a nice set of poses with them as well. If we look at their specific card, let's keep these 2 guys in. Scout Troopers are 48 points. More upgrades available to them. Only 1 in the way of support though. They are unarmed when it comes to combat, so you really don't want to be fighting in melee with them. They just have a single black die and will get hit by somebody very hard. They do come with the E17 hold-out blaster for up-close and personal work, but otherwise you want them to be there as essentially a shield for whoever in the unit has a support weapon. And when it comes to those support weapons, the sniper has got a 1 to 5 range on that rifle. High velocity, pierce 1, 2 black die. So the die isn't amazing, but the range is fantastic. It's one of the longest ones out there, so you can keep everybody far away. Or if you do need to bust a bunker open, you can have your Sonic Charge Saboteur. Blast, impact, and suppressive, and rolls 2 black, a white, and a red die. So it should, theoretically, punch a hole in whatever you needed to punch a hole in. But otherwise, that is all of the troopers for your Imperial set. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some of the game components as you will have to use them in-game to wrap things up. I'm going to start off with your range measuring devices. As I've already mentioned on the cards, things will have a movement rating, like Vader has got a movement of 1, the Stormtroopers have a movement of 2, some things may have a movement of 3 or greater, you'll be told on the card. The measuring devices are hinged, 2-piece, and when you put them together, you simply find the 2 relevant pieces and then make sure they're the right way round, because I don't think they'll come apart easily once you've assembled them. There we go. Click every trip, and that gives you your measuring devices. Like I say, the 3 different sizes. When you come to measure in game for a movement, you take your unit leader, attach him to one side, make any movement changes you want to, and these can be attached anywhere. So if there's a tree or a downed AT-AT or whatever it happens to be, he simply moves from one side to the other, and then the rest of the unit moves up around him. So that's your movement or range, well, movement widgets. Range widgets, slightly different. We have a half range, which is new, looking a tad Aztec-y, like a Star Wars barricade almost. And then apart from the half, you have these full ones. So each one is a range band 1, of which you get 6, one of which is capped, and the rest all have an additional piece. So range 1 becomes range 2, range 3, and so on. Compared to the initial versions of these, they are slightly bigger, but they are hollow, whereas the others were solid, and the attachment points are thicker, especially towards the actual body. The other ones had a tendency to snap because they were the same thickness the whole way. So these are a nice improvement, relatively sturdy, and at the same time light, which is what you need. Next up, we have our dice. There are 2 types. You have attack dice and defense dice. The attack dice are your D8, and your defense dice are the D6 shaped. They are bespoke. So you will see the white have a 1 in 3 chance of giving you a success. That's a surge. Sometimes it will count as something else. It will tell you on the card if a surge is appropriate for the unit. Otherwise, it just counts as a regular success. The red dice have only got a 1 in 3 chance of failing, and they have 3 regular successes and a single surge. And it's really a case of rolling as many of these armor or defense die as you are required and count the successes. Your opponent, in the meantime, will be shooting at you with a variety of various colored die. Red, white, and black. Black have 3 blanks. So a 3/5 chance of a miss. And then they also have 3 successes, 1 critical success, and 1 attack surge. Your red dice will only miss 1 out of 8 times, with, you can see, 5 successes, 1 critical success, and 1 surge. And the white die, well, we don't really talk about the white die. 1 success, 1 critical success, and 1 surge, and 1 success there. So, oh, I've gone round again. So just the 3 successes on that, 3/5. The other 5 shots will be blanks. Very appropriate that they are white die for Stormtroopers. So that's all of the plasticky gameplay components, but there are a lot of cards and it's worth taking a look at those. First thing we're going to look at are the command cards or commander cards. When you're building a force, you will put together a set of these. 2 will have to have 1 pip, 2 have 2 pips, 2 have 3 pips. And you'll have 2 of each, so 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s. Alongside those, you will also have a single standing order card. Now, when you're using these are used for initiative, and then underneath it will tell you what units and how many of them can activate, and sometimes there'll be an additional bit of text. For standing orders, at the end of your command phase, it goes back to your hand. So this is always available. In a turn where you don't need initiative, you can use this. Or in a turn where you don't want to burn a card that may have more value to you later on. So you can see here, if it was to use coordinated fire, it would allow you to activate 3 troop units. And this round, when an allied troop unit spends 1 or more aim tokens after the attack is resolved, choose another allied unit within 2, and that unit gains an aim token. So you can use this to buff multiple troops in a coordinated fire effort. You can see at the bottom, these are listed as Galactic Empire. This is not, because this is part of the standard setup. So your standing orders, assault, push, and ambush, these 4 are available to all factions within the game. They are your generic, but then specific factions may have their own, or sometimes specific commanders. So in this case, Vader has implacable, new ways to motivate them, and master of evil. So when I come to put my command cards together for the game, I have to take the standing orders. But then if I've got Vader and I'm playing Galactic Empire, I could have these as my 6. Or maybe I don't want a specific one of these. Maybe I think I'd be better off just having the standard for whatever reason. So you've got a bit of deck building to a certain amount. Depending on the commander you're bringing, they will influence how your force plays. And it's important to know that 2 Imperial forces, but with a different commander, even though they're identical, they can play in a very different way. So if you've got Krennic or Veers, it will be a different style of Imperial force than if you have Vader in charge, who is obviously a bit more Sith Lordy in his motivation. So that's your command cards, which is one of the key ingredients of gameplay. Okay, the other new thing for Legion for this edition is this player dashboard. And it's made up of several different sections. So if we start at the top, we have this red and orange section. The red is your mission that you're on, and it's built up of several dual cards, shall we say. So if we look here, shifting priorities has a full game deployment zone showing you where your objective should be, and the red and blue sections are your deployment zones and your opponents. If you're playing a smaller recon game, it may have a different setup than that, but that goes in the middle when you come to play to show you what you're playing. And with shifting priorities deployment zone is also this secondary card that tells you what your setup is and what your scoring is and any special rules for the scenario, and it would go there. Like I say, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional scenarios. Shifting priorities is your standard, but then the other ones will come in and change things up, like close the pocket with its recon on the back. So that would be your first thing you'd do, is to pick your scenario. Then you have a secondary objective. So mark targets, bring them to heel, sweep and clear, surface scan, destroy the enemy base, and recon. And again, once one of those is selected, it goes on top like that. Then finally you have advantages or disadvantages, which go to the bottom of the player dashboard, which are these green cards. So you might have cunning deployment and garrison, for example. The thing with this, again, you've got a bit of deck building to do. So when you come to draw these cards, they are drawn from a finite amount. So you would start by building your force and then pick objectives that make sense for that force. If you've got specific, maybe character killers or units that have been built to go after a certain thing or to be very defensive, then, you know, destroying the enemy base would mean you're going to be bringing scout troopers with the sonic charges. If you brought scout troopers without sonic charges and brought sniper rifles, then you're not going to want to include that in your selection of cards. Instead, you might bring marked targets instead. So you have 3 of these, and then you randomly draw 1. Likewise, with your other cards, you pick out of the set of cards that you have a limited amount and then draw them. You do have the opportunity to discard the one that you've drawn, but you will give your opponent potentially the advantage then whenever they come to drawing their own. So you've got to think about the available missions and advantages that you have when it comes to building your lists as well, and make sure that you don't bring objectives or specific scenarios that you're not going to be capable of completing because of your list that you've built. It's one of the reasons why for the initial game, the box contains that breakdown telling you what cards to use from command cards and what objective cards and the like to use as well, because it's been constructed with the forces that are in this box in mind. So there you have it, everything you need to get started playing. A 600 point force as well, so a full recon patrol, which is the smallest of the skirmishes. I will say most of that is taken up by Vader, it has to be said. But otherwise, a terrific set of figures, really nice hard plastics, and all the bits and pieces you'll need, be it cards, dice, tokens, and measuring sticks. So it's great to have this in one bundle. You're not having to share with a friend. If you buy the core set, for example, you won't run out of dice and the like very quickly if you picked up your own set instead. But let me know what you think below. Until next time, bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.